Hey family, thanks for joining me. If you're joining me live, wanted to come to you today, share a few things. A lot of people consider conspiracy theory, and I've been told that it's crazy to think that some of these things are going on. Geoengineering, vaccines. Why would anybody lie about these things? What would their motive be behind it? And I'm gonna just log in and see, make sure that I'm coming through, fam. I don't know if I got a chat set up here. Come on now. I'm gonna go ahead and just see. Bless your soul. You really think you're in control? Well, I think you're crazy. Looks like I'm coming through. I think you're crazy. I think you're crazy. All right, guys. So we'll get rolling now. Please be patient with me. This is my first time using Google Hangouts. I did want to mirror my screen. That way you guys could see the things that I'm reading off of. It really gives a lot of information as to the owners of the empire. I mean, that's what the blog is called. That's what the title of the article is. And it gives a lot of information, and it breaks down a lot of really cool things. And so I'm going to go ahead and mirror this screen, and we're just going to get started right away. We're going to jump right in. One of the things that we need to understand is these things that are going on in the world are the things that really prompted me to look into all of this. Being in ministry and going through a rough time, and really questioning a lot of things that I had learned and saw, and just a lot of burdens that are being taken upon the shoulders of people that are in ministry. And I'm not sure that it's really just the correct environment, the correct way to handle all of these things. And when I started praying about these things, struggled with a lot of them, the Father started to really wake me up to the things that are going on. Again, by the ways of looking up in the sky and seeing these planes drop these chemicals, considering the fact that vaccine injuries are skyrocketing. It's kind of crazy to me that people don't see what's going on. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to seem like I'm having an ego, because I've been woken up to some of these things and actually seen the truth behind a lot of it. Doesn't mean that I'm better than anybody else. It just means that I don't know. You learn from people all the time, and I learn from a lot of people a lot of different things. And I know that the Father is telling me that it's time to share some of those things and educate some of you who think that this is all just a theory, that these things that are going on in the world. But to understand that, we're going to crack open a couple of things, and I'm planning on settling in. I have my coffee, got a Red Bull, I've got a water. This could turn into a 3-hour stream. I don't know. But we're going to read through some things, and we're going to really take a look at the New World Order, take a look at, many people call it the cabal, the Illuminati. There's many different secret societies, and we're going to kind of push through a lot of that and focus on uh, what's behind it all, and who runs it all, and understand that a lot of people will be shocked and surprised, some won't, but the Vatican and uh, the Roman Catholic Church is behind a lot of it, the papacy, and it's really breaks down to the fact that the Roman Empire is still in power. They never lost power like many people thought. Um, there has always been this battle, but the fact is that many countries, most of the world has been infiltrated, and there's even an article that we'll dig into, showing that at one point in history, the Pope had declared ownership of all the souls and everything on the earth. And again, this is some pretty crazy stuff. A lot of people don't believe it, but we're going to take a look at some of these articles, some of these documents that you guys can research for yourselves. And actually, we're doing a lot of the research here for you. And so I just pray that you guys enjoy it. I have the music on just to kind of, as you know, we're introducing these things. I appreciate it, Freedom Fighter. Thanks for watching. Um, hopefully you do catch it. A lot of these things, a lot of people are awake to, and so for many of you that are seeing this, this is all old news. This is all stuff that you already know. This is stuff that you're already aware of, and it's nothing new to you. And so we will just hope that you are patient through it all. And again, we're going to peel back these layers. And so let's get started. Again, this is my first time. I'm going to go ahead and just pause that. I'm going to go ahead and try and do the screen share here. Again, this is my first time using Google Hangouts. I'm usually working off of my phone or my iPad Air 2, and so all of this is new to me. So please be patient with me. Things will get better. I will get better at this. The equipment will get better. I do plan on investing in this to bring you guys information and to bring you wisdom from the Word and from the Father, because again, this has infiltrated every aspect of our world. Okay, so scripturally, we're told that Lucifer has exalted himself above God as God and placed himself on the throne, and so we need to understand that also as believers. And so I know that I'm hoping that this reaches a large audience, whether you're a believer or not, regardless of what you believe in. I think that this is going to be very important information for you, and I hope that you share it. I hope that you are not feared into not sharing. I hope that you're not shamed into not sharing. I really hope that you guys take a hold of these truths. Christ said that you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. The truth does nothing for you if you're not willing to hear it and receive it and know it. And so, again, knowing, it means inside. You got to take it deep down inside, digest it, think about it, meditate on it, and not just on the things of this nature. You got to digest these things, but don't let it scare you either. That's one thing that I really prayed through, is I don't want this to be a fear-mongering thing. I don't want anybody to be afraid. It's just knowledge that people should have. And so let's go ahead and move forward. I'm going to try this screen share and see if we can't get this page up, and we'll look at a couple of different things. All right, let's see if that's bringing it up. And this is it. The owners of the empire, the Vatican, the Crown, and the District of Columbia. All right. And so we are going to go ahead. This is written way back in 2014. And so, again, this is nothing new. It's not anything that many people know about this. Many people are aware, and many people have been discredited, and some, I would say many, have lost their life over this knowledge. And so, one being JFK. And so we'll take a look at that. I'm just going to read through this. The Mad Hatter. Have I gone mad? Alice checks Hatter's temperature. I'm afraid so. You're entirely bonkers, but I'll tell you a secret. All the best people are. And so I told Stephanie that I was going to make this Gnarls Barkley Crazy song, my intro song for every show I do. I'm gonna go ahead and play it while I read through a little bit of this. But if you listen to the lyrics, he's speaking about he's not crazy because he didn't know enough, but because he knew too much. And so sometimes when you know things like this, it can be disturbing. And but the Father is good, and He gets us through these things, and He reveals truth. I do believe in the word still, even though I believe that there have been many attempts to deceive believers that read the Bible and believe in the Bible, and put all of their faith in this word. It's really something that's crazy. So much space. All right. Since I entered politics, I have chiefly had men's views confided to me privately. Some of the biggest men in the United States in the field of commerce and manufacture are afraid of something. They know that there is a power somewhere so organized, so subtle, so watchful, so interlocked, so complete, so pervasive that they had better not speak above their breath when they speak in condemnation of it. And so again, many people, that was Woodrow Wilson, 28th President of the United States, that said that in his speech, The New Freedom in 1913. And so for many of you who know of JFK and his famous secrecy speech, it's what's believed to have gotten him killed. And so I'm going to go ahead and just mute this music, and we will go ahead and play that right here. And so we'll play this 4-minute snippet.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. I not only could not stifle controversy among your readers, I welcome it. This administration intends to be candid about its errors. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. We intend to accept full responsibility for our errors, and we expect you to point them out when we miss them. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. And that is why our press was protected by the First Amendment, the only business in America specifically protected by the Constitution, not primarily to amuse and entertain, not to emphasize the trivial and the sentimental, not to simply give the public what it wants, but to inform, to arouse, to reflect, to state our dangers and our opportunities, to indicate our crises and our choices, to lead, mold, educate, and sometimes even anger.
All right, and so that is it for that one. And so let's get back over here and see. We'll move forward. I'm actually going to step aside for 1 second, guys. We're going to actually I just want to take a second to give the folks on Facebook a little preview. All right, so Facebook family, I just wanted to let you know the link is here. We are live. The chat is up, and so come join us. We just listened to JFK's Secret Society speech. It's a speech that many people believe is what got him killed. And so if you have YouTube, why don't you jump on the channel and join us. I do have screen sharing up, and I've got some information pulled up right now regarding the owners of the empire, and it's the Vatican, District of Columbia. Hey, what's up, Christian? Love you, brother. Um, and the crown, the city of London, located in the center of each city, is an Egyptian obelisk erect. Many of us know what that means. It's a phallic symbol, and it really is kind of a middle finger to God and to the Father of all things. And so we need to question, why are these obelisks everywhere? The obelisk in St. Peter's Square, the Washington Monument, and Cleopatra's Needle in the city of London. Of course, I'm reading from this article here. And so, again, if you would join, hi, Cassandra, then I encourage you, come join, because I've got some things pulled up here, and I've got the chat open on the channel as well. And so you'll be able to chat here amongst yourselves as I read through these things. It's pretty crazy information. And so I invite you there over to YouTube to get some of this information regarding the owners of the empire. Again, many people refer to it as the cabal, the New World Order, the Illuminati. There's many, many, many branches of different secret societies, and that's why we're pulling these layers back. We're kind of pushing through those lower level layers, and we will cover them later. But right now, it's important to get this information out, and so we're not going to do that here on Facebook the whole time, because again, I've got the documents pulled up, and I'd like you to join me so that you can see these documents yourself, because you'll see how the Christian church today is tied in with this sun god worship and the false god worship that I've been talking about. And it really is a deep, deep uh, um, it is a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy against mankind. It's a conspiracy against children of God. We all have that life force that the Father breathed into us, and the enemy wants that. The enemy wants to steal any energy from that and then destroy it. And so we need to understand that there are powers in this world, the rulers of this dark age, right? That they do the bidding for the prince and the power of the air. And so, again, my audience here on YouTube, I appreciate you. It is a huge moneymaker, Christian. It is a huge money maker. That's what it's all about. The root of all evil is the love of money. People think that the money is the root of all evil, but it's not money. It's not mammon. It's the love of money. And so when people understand this, it's just ridiculous how deep this goes, and it's about money. You'll see that the Vatican owns the Federal Reserve, the families. I did share a declassified document on here on Facebook from the CIA. It was declassified during the Freedom of Information Act, and so I shared that on my page, and it goes through the bloodlines of the Illuminati. And so people who want to deny that these things are happening, that they're going on, I'm giving proof. I'm walking through these things on my YouTube station live right now with the chat open. And so please, Facebook, follow the link, join me live. I'm going to keep walking through this, but I'm going to sign off here on Facebook. Thank you, YouTube family, for being patient. Again, the chat is open there, so you guys can speak with me. You guys can converse amongst yourselves as I read through these things. It's very interesting. It's very deep, and it does have a lot of spiritual connotations or meanings or ramifications. Like, these things matter. And I've been saying for a long time that the public is blind because of the fluoride in the water and things like that. We are. It calcifies our pineal gland. It causes us to go dull. That and the vaccines and the stuff they're spraying in the air, it dulls us. As well as, and we'll go through this on YouTube as well, but the patents for the electromagnetic programming. It's mind control and programming. And so for many of you who have seen that movie, They Live, it's a corny movie, but it is really what's going on. they do serve mammon, and you cannot serve mammon and love the Father, and that is their God. And so it's the mammon, it's the money, and then the knowledge. They've got so much knowledge, so much secret knowledge that they have hidden. That's why it's called secret knowledge. It's not because only a few people know it. It's because only a few people know it because these people are hiding it. And so join me, please. Jump over on YouTube, follow the link. It's going to be very interesting. Join me. This might be an hour long, 2 hours long. So for however long you can join me on YouTube, please join me. The link is in the description. Click on it, jump in the chat, and follow along. I'm going to continue on here. So YouTube family, let's continue. Thank you for being patient, and I'll see you Facebook family later. I love you, and we'll see you later. All right, and now we are back live here. We are back live here on YouTube, and we are going to continue on. We just covered the fact that these obelisks are everywhere. And why is there an Egyptian obelisk? It's a tribute to the Egyptian pagan sun god Amen Ra, and that's another reason why we shouldn't be saying Amen at the end of our um, our prayers, because it really is these transliterations, these the way that these words were translated from all of these original languages are so skewed that it really does have people invoking these gods like Amen Ra. And so, why is this obelisk, this tribute to this Egyptian pagan sun god Amen Ra, in the middle of Vatican City? Well, I'll tell you, people, it's because it is sun worship. And we as believers, whether you're Protestant, whether you're a Baptist, whether all of these offshoots of Christianity are birthed out of the Vatican, and they are birthed out of Roman Catholicism. And I want everybody to understand now that I don't believe that every Roman Catholic is doomed to hell or in on this, or doing something evil. We see throughout the Old Testament, right, that people were worshiping the false gods in the temples of the Father, right? In the temples of God, in the temples of the Lord, in the temples of the Elohim. They were worshiping Elohim in the temples of the Elohim. And that's for another study. We will dig into Genesis 6. We'll dig into Ezekiel. We'll dig into Revelation. We'll dig into the prophets. We'll dig into many different places discussing the difference between the Elohim. And Psalm 38 or 83, I believe, is a great place. But we will break down, now that I know how to do this screen sharing, we will break it down using the Blue Letter Bible, Strong's Concordance, and the Berean Bible Study tools to show that there are many gods that were worshipped throughout the Old Testament. And we know in the storyline that that's why often the cities were destroyed, torn down, and the people were taken into exile into these foreign lands with foreign gods. And so we are going to really dig deep into these things. And I hope that you folks share the channel, that you subscribe, that you hit the bell for notifications, and that you really just join this family of truth. That's one thing that I have really, really come to love, is that these truthers, there's so many people that, you know what, you break every barrier and every chain and every judgment and every label when you come to know these truths, because you see that that's part of the agenda, that's part of the plan, that's part of the deception. There is putting all these labels, all these different denominations. Look at the separation in the Christian church alone, right? And so when you start to understand that Christ even warned against these things, beware of the leaven of Herod, the leaven of the government, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. the leaven of religion, the leaven of religious leaders, that shaming system, that fear system. And when you know the truth and you're set free from that, you come to know that love of God that He has for you. You see the Father clearly, and you're able to love people that you had at one point in your life thought unlovable. And the Father really does transform you into that image of Christ as you assume that role, and that you start to understand that you are an eternal being, and that you do have a sovereignty to you. You have the Spirit of the Father and the Spirit of truth that declares all things, as said in Scripture, that you have known since Christ has been with you since the beginning. And so, again, as we look at Scripture with spiritual eyes, we begin to understand it in a way that we were taught not to. And that is one of the hardest things, is breaking free from that. And so I pray and hope, family, that that is what happens here. And so I'll stop rambling. We can move on and keep walking through this. And so, contained within these three cities is more than 80% of the world's wealth. That is amazing, right? Within those three cities, 80% of the world's wealth is contained. Oof. And we wonder why there's starvation. Why is there homelessness? Why is there a world hunger when we have an endless resource, and the land does replenish itself? It's because there is a conspiracy against every man and woman and child on the face of this earth. And so let's continue. The empire of the city is essentially the British Empire, or more accurately, the forces behind the British Empire of the past. The empire asserts its control over its colonies, such as the US, Canada, Australia, and the European Union, through complicated means. One of their means of control is to have agents of their cause in high places of influence. Okay, did you hear that? One of their means of control is to have agents of their cause in places of high influence. So we need to understand with that, people. I'm going to go ahead, whenever I take a break, I am going to go ahead and minimize and stop the screen sharing. And go back to the camera. And so we got to understand that with this, it's an amazing thing that many people don't understand, that this power has infiltrated every aspect of our lives. This power has infiltrated the education system. This is what has instituted the education system. When you start to understand and discover that there are things such as hidden history, when you come to find out and discover things like and research these things, people, you don't believe me, do your research. The findlings and the orphan trains, how children were taken and transplanted and taught a false history. Research Tartaria, and a lot of these things have so much deeper to do than just hidden history. And we're going to dig into that as well when we start looking into the quantum physics of this reality, or what we have come to know as this reality, because really it is a projection from the enemy, and it is a reality that we know, a physical reality. But again, we are told throughout Scripture that we are spiritual beings, that we are eternal beings, and that we were created above the angels. And what angels? The archons, the Elohim, the sons of God, the ones that, again, created this realm. And we'll dig into that. That's for another Bible study. I don't want to lose you guys. We're going to continue on here But again, just keeping that in mind and digesting that they have infiltrated every aspect. Now, this is something that really struck me when I was when I was doing ministry one night. I had a gentleman come in, a parent of one of the children come in and tell me that his daughter belonged to a group called the Sons of Job. And it is a group that you have to be a Masonic member to have your daughter participate. So this gentleman wanted to nominate me. And I prayed about it and I was like, wow, that's really weird. I had heard some things about Freemasonry, but at this time I was still like oblivious to the fact that these things were a reality. I was still in denial. I was still um, fighting against the fact that there might be a greater conspiracy against man and that it might have some kind of influence over the church, the doctrines of man, and the things that I had come to know as my reality, my faith, my belief system. And it just it began to fall apart and unravel. And so again, I want you folks to understand that this isn't being done to cause fear. This isn't being done to cause doubt in the Father. We do have a creator, a higher creator that created all things, that created these Elohim, these little gods that many people have been duped into worshiping. And again, we go through the Old Testament. Do you think that the children of Israel were in these temples going after the false gods knowingly? I'm sure some of them were, just like today. I'm sure that many people who go after these false gods in the realm of the Christian church are doing so knowingly, right? But I believe that many are deceived. And just like there were back then, I think many of the people were deceived, led, and even forced or feared and shamed into this worship, thinking that these false gods were the actual most high, the almighty, ineffable. I mean, his name is ineffable, and that's for a reason, right? um and that is where Christ proceedeth from. That is where the Holy Spirit proceedeth from. And so we need to keep all these things in mind as we move forward and understand that even the things that have an appearance of good, like many of these secret societies, they do have a lot of benevolence, a lot of good deeds being done. But we are going to dig further and learn a little bit more about this cabal of powerful manipulators, collectively known as the Illuminati, the shadow government, the Omega Agency, the government within the government, and so on and so forth. It doesn't matter what they're called. So I'm going to switch back onto the screen sharing. We're going to get back to the document and we are going to keep reading. We're going to keep peeling the layers back, as I said. And so stick with me, family. I love y'all. And I hope that this is going to bring a lot of truth, knowledge, wisdom, that once you know this truth, that you'll be set free from these systems of bondage that we have been under and that have been put in place by these powers that are doing the bidding, and definitely um, shoulder to shoulder with the ruler of this age. And again, he took Christ up on a mountain and offered him everything because it was appointed to him for a time. And that time is drawing short, and that's why these deceptions are getting greater and greater and greater. And that's why many, 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 many more people are being deceived and continuing to fall for these things. And so let's get back to the screen sharing. Be patient with me, guys. Again, fairly new at this, so let's keep rolling, family. I love y'all. And let's get this up and going. And let's get back on. There we go. Let me just make sure that it popped back up. And there it is. So they are there. These secret societies, these agencies, the cabal, the Illuminati, all of these things are real, and they are actually going on right now. Many, many, many things are being conspired against you. Give me 1 second, family. It was getting hot in here, so I had a window open, but it is snowy and cold, so I am closing it up. All right, and I am back. Let's get this going again. Oh. All right, so these secret societies are there, and they have been actively and legislatively writing away our freedoms and have also been working towards this new world order, which I believe is in place already. We see the Pope meeting with imams and joining up with the Islamic religion. And again, I love everybody. I love my Muslim brothers and sisters. I love my Hindu brothers and sisters. I love my people of mankind, womankind, of every kind, regardless of what you identify as, regardless of what your beliefs are. I love you. I love you with the love of the Father. And so, again, let's move forward with this truth. Examples of this, again, things for you guys to research, are the Patriot Acts, H.R. Bill 1955, European the European Union Constitution, Security and Prosperity Partnership. Obelisks are phallic-shaped monuments honoring the pagan sun god of ancient Egypt called Amen-Ra, sun rays. And again, I said that Amen is invoking that god, and understand that the actual word was Amen. Amen, like ramen, almost like no, not like ramen, like a main water line, like Maine, Main, Maine. And so we need to understand these words, these terms. Yeshua, Isu, Jesus, the very different. Anyway, that's for another study. I'll digress. We need to understand that that's what these phallic-shaped monuments are honoring, is the Egyptian sun god Amen-Ra, which means sun rays. The spirit of this pagan god is said to reside within these obelisks. And so they believe that there's power in these things. And I do believe that there is spiritual power in a lot of these dark mystical arts that they practice. And so let's move forward. And again, keeping in mind that this is speaking of the Roman Catholic Church, the Roman Empire, the papacy. The stranglehold empire cities have over humanity is achieved through secret societies such as Freemasons. I'll just mention them. The Scottish Rite and Prince Hall. Members are blood brothers, having sworn to ever conceal and never reveal the principal secret, which is the G in the center of compass and square. It represents Lucifer, and they are his soldiers, which have been given titles of royalty, exalting them over humanity. Thus, they are known as black nobility. And so, with black nobility, we will get deeper into black nobility and the Jesuits and the Black Pope and the real power behind the papacy and the Vatican. And a lot of, again, the fact that they practice these mystical dark arts and a lot of these Luciferian doctrines, and that were birthed out of the School of Mysteries and the Egyptian mysteries and Egyptian arts, the dark arts of some of these other ancient cultures that were practiced as they were worshiping these Benai Elohim, these fallen angels, these archons, these lesser gods that came and exalted themselves as God, placing themselves on the throne. And there is a couple of them that are the main characters. And again, I'll digress. That's for a different study. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. We're going to stick to this. Some things for you to research. So you can look into that. Who is the Luciferians? Who is, and just look up what ties the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, has to do with the Luciferians and the actual worship of the Baphomet and the dark arts that are what we know as the New World Order, Illuminati, black magic. Aleister Crowley is highly responsible for revealing a lot of these things and starting these or perpetuating these secret societies. And so we're going to move forward. Some things for you to research are the Pilgrim Society that interlocks with the Committee of 300, Bilderberg Trilateral Commission, Royal Institute of International Affairs, its American branch, the Council on Foreign Relations, CFR. A lot of people are aware of that, but they don't know what part they have to play in um, in all of this. And so do some research, folks. Look at some of these things and how they all tie in together and how they tie in with this empire that is ruling over the people today, and perpetuating a unthinkable agenda of mind control, of depopulation, of mass genocide. And again, we see these things from different, just little tiny corners of different realms of our lives. And some of us see the abortion, but many of us are so passionate about women's rights that we've been made to believe that most innocent life is less valuable than this woman's career or this woman's mistake of sleeping with somebody that she didn't know, having a one-night stand. And I am aware that there is rape, that there is a lot of other factors that come into play, like life endangering factors, and those things should be dealt with. But I don't believe that rape is an excuse, that child, that innocent life should not have to pay for the crimes of the man that perpetrated that crime. And so again, I'll digress. I don't want to go off on a rabbit hole. I just don't want anybody to think that I'm being judgmental, because I love you all. And I want you to know that there is a true love and forgiveness and a mercy and a grace and everything for those who have gone down that road of abortion, for anybody. He made it available for anybody and everybody, because Christ said, if you've broken one, you've broken them all. And I've broken more than one. And so I know I've broken them all in the eyes of the Father and the eyes of Christ. And so when you, again, do that introspective work, take a look at yourself, understand that you are no better than the next person, regardless of what their so-called sin is, whatever their missing the mark is of what the Father desires for us to do. Understand that we are all there. And when you, again, find these truths, come to know the truth will set you free. And so, folks, let's move forward in this truth. And we're already 20 minutes in, and so let's just keep plugging away. Actually, we're 50 minutes in, right? We started at 10:30, and so let's keep plugging away. These powers, along with worldwide Freemasonry, form nexus of global management team, which binds Zionist British hereditary monarchies or British royalty and Anglo-American plutocracy together meet the world money power. Empire states are sovereign, operating above all other nation states whose installed leaders must make pilgrimage to Rome and do obeisance before their earthly king. And we see President Bush and Nancy Pelosi kissing the hand of the Pope's ring, and it really is the worship of man. The papacy, the Pope claims to be the vicar of Christ, which means Christ. Well, Christ is gone, but check it out, Christ never left, and so therein lies the very first um, complete and utter heresy in this belief system, is that there needs to be a stand-in, and that he has the authority of Christ, and that basically, if we know that Christ is in the Father and the Father in Christ, and Christ made himself equal with God. And so when we understand that, um, the Pope is saying that he's God and that he has that authority over every soul on the face of this earth. All right. There's many more layers, so let's keep going. The real menace of our public is the invisible government. Again, many people refer to it as the cabal or the shadow government, which, like a giant octopus, sprawls its slimy legs over our cities, states, and nation. The little courtier of powerful international bankers virtually run the United States government for their own selfish purposes. They practically control both parties, which, again, I was posting a lot of patriotic Republican stuff. And when the Father opens your eyes to this thing, you begin to understand what that narrow way is, that you're not judging between good and evil, because both sides of both of these parties are throwing stones at each other, when both are just as guilty as the other one of many great crimes. And so, again, we need to look at ourselves. The work begins with us, people. And so they control both parties and control the majority of the newspapers and magazines in this country. Again, all the media is owned and controlled by these corporations, which are ran and controlled by this trinity of globalist control. They use columns of these papers to club into submission or drive out of office public officials who refuse to do the bidding of the powerful, corrupt cliques which compose the invisible government. It operates a cover of self-created screen and seizes our executive offices, legislative bodies, schools, courts, newspapers, and every agency created for the public protection. New York City Mayor John F. Hyland, New York Times, March 26, 1922. And so this is something that was being recognized way back then, okay? So a lot of these things that we see are a lot of these things that we see they've been known for a long time. And the more that we turn a blind eye, the more that we're complicit in these acts. And I think that that's why so many people have an issue with facing the facts that these things are actually going on, is because then you would have to, again, do that introspective work and understand that the blood is on your hands as well. And whether you've actively been participating as a cabal member or one of these Illuminati, Freemasons, um, Knights of Malta. I mean, there's so many layers. But whether you're complicit in that manner or you're just turning that blind eye, to turn a blind eye to evil makes you complicit in that evil. And so that was one of the hardest things that I had to come to terms with, is the blood that I had on my hands for participating in the teaching of many of these heresies and many of these deceptions, especially being in ministry and understanding what the word says about judgment beginning at the house of God, and that teachers will be held to a stricter judgment. And Christ even said, don't let any of you be rabbis. Don't let many of you be teachers, because there is going to be a stricter judgment. And so again, there's never any judgment from me against any of my my brethren, my family, my people that I served alongside in ministry. I understand that there's a great deception, and the greatest, it says that even the elect would be deceived. And so, family, I believe that many of you are the elect, and that you will not be deceived, that you will come to know this truth. And that's why the Father has me speaking forth these things, regardless of what people are gonna throw at me. People are gonna want to stone me, and that's okay. Um, I love the Father, and I love you guys, and we're gonna keep moving forward in this truth. So let's go ahead and get the screen back up. And so we see here that since the 20s, it's been known. Click on this just to show you guys the image. The Trinity of globalist control. All right, that's something else, man. Vatican City, it's compiling the one world religion. The City of London, it is the financial aspect of the beast system. Washington, D.C., it is that one world military force. Think about it. Many people think that it's the UN, and Obama gave many of our uh, just so much power over to the UN, especially with the operation of FEMA, and just many other things that, again, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but really, I mean, the UN is really the military that you're going to be seeing move in when the S hits the fan. And so we got to understand that these three separate states here are completely independent of their respective countries. So Washington, D.C. is actually a corporation. And if you look that up and you research it, you'll see that these three, the City of London is actually its own sovereign area, separate from London. Vatican City is its own separate area, sovereign area, separate of Italy, and they are guarded by who? The Swiss? What a trip, right? Swiss banks. It's where a lot of globalists hide their money. And so here it is, Vatican, owner of the world's biggest banks and top global companies, exposed. And I don't know how long this video is, fam. We're going on an hour, and this is 10 minutes.
Did the world wars, revolutions, and big events of human history evolve naturally, or were they calculated and pre-planned? If they were pre-planned, who planned them, and what are they planning for the future of humanity? The answer to this puzzling question can be found within the boundaries of three of the world's most powerful cities. Those three cities belong to no nation and pay no taxes. They are Washington's District of Columbia, which is not part of the city of Washington or of the United States, the inner city of London, which is not part of London or England, and Vatican City, which is not part of Rome or Italy. These cities, called city-states, have their own independent flag, their own separate laws, and their own separate identity.
Vatican City is in fact a state, the smallest principality in the world. It lies on the banks of the Tiber, completely surrounded by the city of Rome. Its status as a separate state emerged from the Lateran Agreements of February 1929. It has its own newspaper, postal service, radio and television station, its own flag, and a population of about 1,000.
The Vatican also has its own army of Swiss guards, and it even has its own prison. The Vatican rules over approximately 2 billion of the world's 6.1 billion people. The colossal wealth of the Vatican includes enormous investments with the Rothschilds in Britain, France, and the USA, and with giant oil and weapons corporations like Shell and General Electric. The Vatican solid gold bullion worth billions is stored with the Rothschild-controlled Bank of England and the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank. The Catholic Church is the biggest financial power, wealth accumulator, and property owner in existence, possessing more material wealth than any bank, corporation, giant trust, or government anywhere on the globe. The Pope, who is the visible ruler of this colossal global wealth, is one of the richest men on earth. While 2/3 of the world earns less than $2 a day, and 1/5 of the world is underfed or starving to death, the Vatican hoards the world's wealth, profits from it on the stock market, and at the same time preaches about giving. How did the Pope and Vatican accumulate all that wealth over the millennium? One method was to put a price tag on sin. Many bishops and popes actively marketed guilt, sin, and fear for profit by selling indulgences. Worshippers were encouraged to prepay for sins they hadn't yet committed and get pardoned ahead of time. Those who didn't pay up risked eternal damnation in Satan's oven. Pope Leo X rebuilt St. Peter's Basilica, selling tickets out of hell and tickets to heaven. During the Dark Ages, the Catholic Church not only hoarded the wealth they collected from the poor, but hoarded knowledge. They kept the masses ignorant and in the dark by denying them a basic education. Like Vatican City, London's inner city is also a privately owned corporation or city-state, located right smack in the heart of Greater London. It became a sovereign state in 1694 when King William III of Orange privatized and turned the Bank of England over to the bankers. By 1812, Nathan Rothschild crashed the English stock market and scammed control of the Bank of England. Today, the city-state of London is the world's financial power center and the wealthiest square mile on the face of the earth. It houses the Rothschild-controlled Bank of England, Lloyd's of London, the London Stock Exchange, all British banks, the branch offices of 385 foreign banks, and 70 U.S. banks. It has its own courts, its own laws, its own flag, and its own police force. It's not part of Greater London or England or the British Commonwealth and pays no taxes. The city-state of London houses Fleet Street's newspaper and publishing monopolies. It is also the headquarters for worldwide English Freemasonry and headquarters for the worldwide money cartel known as the Crown. Contrary to popular belief, the Crown is not the royal family or the British monarch. The Crown is the private corporate city-state of London. It has a council of 12 members who rule the corporation under a mayor called the Lord Mayor. The Lord Mayor and his 12-member council serve as proxies or representatives who sit in for 13 of the world's wealthiest, most powerful banking families. This ring of 13 ruling families includes the Rothschild family, the Warburg family, the Oppenheimer family, and the Schiff family.
I just want to pause that for a second, family, and just let everybody understand that, again, I do have a link on my Facebook page that has the declassified CIA documents that discuss the bloodlines of the Illuminati and some of these world powers. And so I will try and find that link. I'll just go to my Facebook and copy and paste it and put it in the description here as well. And so you can take a look at that.
These families and their descendants run the Crown Corporation of London. The Crown Corporation holds the title to worldwide Crown land in Crown colonies like Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. The British Parliament and the British Prime Minister serve as a public front for the hidden power of these ruling crown families. Like the city-state of London and the Vatican, a third city-state was officially created in 1982. That city-state is called the District of Columbia and is located on 10 square miles of land in the heart of Washington. The District of Columbia flies its own flag and has its own independent constitution. Although geographically separate, the city-states of London, the Vatican, and the District of Columbia are one interlocking empire called Empire of the City. The flag of Washington's District of Columbia has 3 red stars, one for each city-state in the 3-city empire. This corporate empire of 3 city-states controls the world economically through London's inner city, militarily through the District of Columbia, and spiritually through the Vatican. The Constitution for the District of Columbia operates under a tyrannical Roman law known as Lex Fori, which bears no resemblance to the U.S. Constitution. When Congress passed the Act of 1871, it created a separate corporate government for the District of Columbia. This treasonous act allowed the District of Columbia to operate as a corporation outside the original Constitution of the United States and outside of the best interests of American citizens. Corporation of the United States. Like Canada and Australia, whose leaders are prime ministers of the Queen and whose land is called Crown Land, the United States is just another crown colony. Crown colonies are controlled by the empire of 3 city-states. At the center of each city-state is a towering, phallic-shaped stone monument called an obelisk that points skyward. In D.C. city-state, the obelisk, known as the Washington Monument, was dedicated to Freemason George Washington by the Freemason Grand Lodge of the District of Columbia. The secretive Brotherhood of Freemasons laid the Washington obelisk's cornerstone in 1848 and contributed 22 Masonic memorial stones. 250 Masonic lodges financed the Washington Monument obelisk, including the Knights Templar Masonic Order. At the heart of London city-state is a 187-ton, 69-foot-tall Egyptian obelisk called Cleopatra's Needle. It was transported from Egypt and erected on the banks of the River Thames. In Vatican City, another Egyptian obelisk towers high above St. Peter's Square. What exactly is an obelisk? Obelisks are phallic-shaped monuments honoring the pagan sun god of ancient Egypt called Amun-Ra. The spirit of this pagan god is said to reside within the obelisk. Obelisks symbolize the phallus and fertility. At the base of the obelisk is a sunwheel circle symbolizing the vagina. Together, they depict male and female sexual union.
The heroic fight with us. The honest support us. The corrupt fear us. For we are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forget. We do not forgive. Expect us to expose you.
Ta-da! All right, and so there's that. And again, for those of you having difficulty believing the information presented in this article, I fully understand. I too went through that, okay? So for the first 57 years of this gentleman's life, he didn't believe it either. And the possibility that a shadow government actually existed. 3 years ago, his worldview changed 3 years prior to 2014 when this was written. While he was on vacation in Mount Shasta, he came across a book titled Global Conspiracy. I suggest that you all go out and get a copy, check a copy out from the library and read it. It seemed very strangely out of place in a metaphysical bookstore. I never heard of the author before, some guy named David Icke. For those of you who don't know David Icke, I believe it's David Icke. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but um, many people have tried to discredit him and say that he's part of a psyop, a CIA psyop. But this gentleman speaks a lot of truth, and some of it is bizarre, man. Some of it is out there, and it really does take crucifying your flesh and really getting rid of all of that worldly mammon, that riches of the knowledge that we think that we have, all of this knowledge and all of this knowing and all of this understanding, when really we've just been programmed and we've been manipulated to believe in this false reality that we live in. And so, again, moving forward, this gentleman scanned through the book. Frankly, didn't believe 99% of it, but he saw one thing that caught his attention, and he knew that it could be very easily verify David Icke's assertion. He did his own research. Turned out what Icke had said was true. That led him down a rabbit hole, as many truthers do end up having to go down a rabbit hole, and many hundreds of hours of independent research, such as myself, Ross Pittman did, and he came to discover these things to be truth as well. And so when we come to know these truths, it's very disturbing and can be really shake our faith. And so I just want to continue to reiterate that you don't have to have a doubt in the Father. Okay, if you're here, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, no matter if it's during live or if it's afterward, if it's at any point in time, if you're watching this, it's for a reason. The Father works all things together for the good of those who love him. And you know, Christ said, keep seeking, keep asking, keep knocking. So many of us are discouraged from doing that, especially those in the religious realms. Totally discouraged from trying to find any truth outside of the truth that they've been indoctrinated to believe. And we see that in the division amongst Christians alone. And so let's move forward, unwrapping these conspiracies against you and your neighbors and your children and everybody you know. The Trinity of the global empire. Again, ask yourselves, why is Washington, D.C. not a state? And legally, it's a separate city-state entity apart from the United States of America. People don't understand that the United States government is a corporate oligarchy. And so it's not even part of the United States of America. And you'll have to do some research on maritime law and U.S. personhood or personhood in general, and live birth certificates versus government birth certificates, and the ownership. It comes back to the ownership of your souls, and we will look at this in depth, where the Vatican made that claim a long time ago. 1306, the legal ownership of all souls by the Vatican. Since 1306, history of the trusts, the first trust of the world. Unum Sanctum, many people don't even understand what this is one of the most frightening documents of history, and the one most quoted as the primary document of the popes claiming their global power. Again, they claim that they are Christ, that they are the Father, that they are God on this earth. And who do we know is God on this earth? Who do we know is appointed to rule over this earth for a time? Who was it that offered this world to Christ if he only bowed and worshiped him? That's who the Pope is claiming to be right now. Their global power. It is an express trust deed that the last line reads, furthermore, we declare, we proclaim, we define that it is absolutely necessary for salvation that every human creature be subject to the Roman pontiff. It is not only the first trust deed in history, but also the largest trust ever conceived, as it claims the whole planet and everything on it conveyed in trust. And so this is actually legal documents, people, legal documents. And it has to do with Again, these Faustian deals, these people make a deal with Lucifer. And so for power, and when you have in this realm, in this matrix of false reality, and again, it is reality, but it is false. It is a realm, a temporary realm that we are told in Scripture that we are just sojourners, just passing through. That this is not our home. That we are not of this world. And so it really disturbs me when men like Ken Ham, who have a lot of pull and a lot of influence, go off on tangents regarding people believing in aliens and whatnot. And so it's just something that let me see. I don't know what I'm doing here, family. All right. So it's just one of those things, right? It's one of those things that people have a hard time understanding that uh, this has permeated into every aspect of the world, when people don't even understand that these kind of things are in place, that these are legal documents, that these are people that are dealing with these fallen entities from Genesis 6. Okay, we're told that they were locked away for a while, right? But that in the end times that they would be released, and that even Lucifer would be released. And so we understand that the Nephilim, the disembodied souls of the offspring of the fallen angels, are doing the work here and influencing and in cahoots with these people in power who are really just demented, really have this corruptness of their soul, and and are so heavily influenced and fooled by these demonic entities that they believe that they have some kind of power. But this, we're told, our lives are but a vapor, and if you're going to have your reward here, it's going to be a very short reward, and in the end you will be subject to these tormenting spirits. And so you might think that they're doing the bidding for you now. They give you your rewards here, especially when you get many, many, many other people to come and join in that false worship, that worship of false gods, and to dedicate their souls, their spirits over to these false gods. You know, it's just something that's crazy. And so anyway, let's continue. I know we've been going for a while, and I want to get through this one document because we got tons more to go over. And so let's get back onto this. And so again, we're just going to go through a little bit of this to understand Triple Crown of Baal, aka the Papal Tiara and Triregnum. Regnum. I don't know how to say that, but in 1302, Pope Boniface issued his infamous papal bull Unum Sanctum, the first express trust he claimed control over the whole planet, which made him king of the world. Who's king of the world? King of this world. We know the answer to that, right? If you don't, it's Lucifer. In celebration, he commissioned a gold-plated headdress in the shape of a pine cone. The pine cone has a lot to do with fertility and the worship of these gods and goddesses. And so, again, this goes back to the Mesopotamian cuneiform writings. We see in these glyphs and in these writings these human hybrids, human animal hybrids that have these purses and these pine cones, and it has a lot to do with fertility and with pollinating of these gardens, and in that, so we need to understand that as in the days of Noah and as in the days of Lot, and so the end times are going to be very similar to that time. back then they had technologies that far surpass our technologies today. And so we need to understand that that when we think that we know it all, have it all, and are just so intelligent, these ancient uh, cultures uh, knew so much more, and therein lies some of these deceptions. The Roman Catholic Church and even Christians burned many, many, many of the ancient writings and books and history, decimated the history of the true knowledge of the creation of this world, of the reason for the creation, of the purposes for people coming, for the divine spirits in us to be here, for that which we really are, the Spirit of the Father, that He breathed life into us, right? That's why Christ called us sons of God. And again, why we're being manipulated. And family, I hope you guys are getting a lot out of this, and that you're understanding a lot of it, and that it is opening your eyes to the deceptions here. And again, we are going to unwrap and unravel how these deceptions are even in our favorite churches and our favorite leaderships and our favorite movements. And sorry, I needed a drink. As we look at these things, we'll see that the Knights of Malta are part of these secret societies, and they have a lot of influence and ties to the Calvary Chapel movement, which I was a part of and raised up in ministry with. And so, again, it's very disturbing. It's very difficult things to face, but let's continue here. In celebration, he commissioned a gold-plated headdress in the shape of a pine cone with an elaborate crown at its base. The pine cone is an ancient symbol of fertility and one traditionally associated with Baal, as well as the cult of Cybele. It also represents the pineal gland in the center of our brains, crystalline in nature, which allows us to access to source, hence the 13-foot tall pine cone in Vatican Square. Think about why the pontiffs would idolize a pine cone. And so that is one of the reasons for this quote unquote conspiracy theory. It's actually a conspiracy. It's not just a theory. Florida's been proven time and time and time over to be poisonous, to be dangerous, to be toxic. It solidifies and crystallizes our pineal gland, which again is the access to source. As the chrism in our bodies rises, it opens that third eye and gives you access to source. And again, a lot of people can use it for dark mystery arts and to communicate with these other entities, and even give give authority to some of these entities, or try and use these entities for their selfish purposes, which is why you see in the churches it is actually witchcraft that's being practiced. It's actually conjurations and invocations that are happening when you're praying. Why are afterglows and these believer meetings happening in the dark of night and for a select few? I actually was a part of one of these things that it blew my mind. I'll share that here in a minute. Let's finish reading this. Pope Boniface VIII was the first leader in history to create the concept of a trust, but the first testamentary trust through a deed and will creating a deceased estate was created by Pope Nicholas V in 1455 through the papal bull Romanus Pontifex. This is only one of 3 papal bulls to include the line with incept for a perpetual remembrance. This bull had the effect of conveying the right of use of the land as real property from the express trust unum sanctum to the control of the pontiff and his successors in perpetuity. Hence, all land is claimed as crown land. This first crown is represented by the first Siastu Kavi Trust. I don't know how to say that. Created when a child is born. It deprives us of all beneficial entitlements and rights in the land. Hence, this is the reason for birth certificates. The second crown of the Commonwealth. The second crown was created in 1481 with the papal bull Arturini Regis, meaning eternal crown, by Sixtus IV, being only the second of 3 papal bulls as deeds of testamentary trusts. The papal bull created the crown of Aragon, later known as the crown of Spain, and is the highest sovereign and highest steward of all Roman slaves subject to the rule of the Roman pontiff. That's you and me and anybody else who has a birth certificate. Spain lost the crown in 1604 when it was granted to King James I of England by Pope Paul V after the successful passage of the Union of Crowns, or Commonwealth, in 1605, after the false flag operation of the Gunpowder Plot. The crown was finally lost by England in 1975 when it was returned to Spain and King Carlos where it remains to this day. This second crown is represented by the second Sestu Kevi Trust, created when a child is born, and by the sale of the birth certificate as a bond to the private central bank of the nation, depriving us of ownership of our flesh and condemning us to perpetual servitude as a Roman person or slave. And so understand, people, this is a slave system, as I've been saying. You guys think I'm crazy. You guys think that this is all conspiracy theory. This is an actual slave system that the enemy has put in place using government and religion and, again, mammon, money, riches. And so you might look at politicians and say they're just puppets and they're just slaves. You might look at celebrities and say they've sold their soul and they're just slaves. Well, you know what? If you got a 9-to-5 and you're selling your life, the time out of your life, the precious time that is not, you can't ever get that back. And you're selling that for a few dollars an hour. And so understand that we are all a part of this slave system. If you are born into this world, then you are a part of this slave system and you are a slave to the Roman Empire, to this modern empire. The third crown of the ecclesiastical see. The third crown was created in 1537 by Paul III through the papal bull convocation, also meant to open the Council of Trent. Now, research the Council of Trent. It is a third and final testamentary deed and will of a testamentary trust set up for the claiming of all lost souls lost to the sea. The Venetians asserted in the creation of the first C.S. Kevi Act of 1540 to use this papal bull as the basis of ecclesiastical authority of Henry VIII. The crown was secretly granted to England in the collection and reaping of lost souls. The crown was lost in 1816 due to the deliberate bankruptcy of England and granted to the Temple Bar, which became known as the Crown Bar or simply the Crown. The bar associations run all attorneys and lawyers, right, have since been responsible for administering the reaping of the souls and of the lost and damned, including the registration and collection of baptismal certificates representing the souls collected by the Vatican and stored in its vaults. The third crown is represented by the third C.S. Kevi Trust, created when a child is baptized. So there we go. There we go. Some information regarding baptism. And so again, it's gonna get deep, people. We're gonna see how this has really infiltrated every aspect of religion. And yeah, it's pretty crazy. So let's move on. The third crown is represented, blah blah blah. It is The parent's grant of the baptismal certificate, title to the soul, to the church or registrar. Thus, without legal title over one soul, we will be denied legal standing and treated as things, cargo without souls, upon which the bar is now legally able to enforce maritime law. Again, do some research on maritime law and personhood. This Sestui Kevi Trust is a fictional concept. It is a temporary testamentary trust first created during the reign of Henry VIII of England through the Sestui Kevi Act of 1540 and updated by Charles II through the CQV Act of 1666, wherein an estate may be affected for the benefit of a person presumed lost or abandoned at sea and therefore assumed dead after 7 years. Additional presumptions by which such a trust may be formed were added in later statutes to include bankrupts, minors, incompetents, mortgages, and private companies. The original purpose of a CQV trust was to form a temporary estate for the benefit of another because some event, state of affairs, or condition prevented them from claiming their status as living, competent, and present before competent authority. Therefore, any claims, history, statutes, or arguments that deviate in terms of the origin and function of a CQV trust, as pronounced by these canons, is false and automatically null and void. Sorry about that, guys. That's my ring going off. A beneficiary under a state may be either beneficiary or a CQV trust. When a beneficiary loses direct benefit of any property of the higher estate placed in a CQV trust on his behalf, he do not own the CQV trust. He is only the beneficiary of what the trustees of the CQV trust choose to provide, as all CQV trusts are created on presumption based on original purpose and function. Such a trust cannot be created if these presumptions can be proven not to exist. Since 1933, when a child is born in a estate under inferior Roman law 3, CS Kevi trusts are created upon certain presumptions specifically designed to deny forever the child any rights of real property, any rights to be free, and any rights to be known as man or woman rather than creature or animal by claiming and possessing their soul or spirit. And so this is the thing, people, is you are seen as a commodity, as cargo, as a soulless creature. When you're born into this world, when your parents unwittingly sign that birth certificate, that infant baptism, as my parents did, as many other parents did, as I did for my children. They weren't infant baptized, but they do have birth certificates. And so we need to understand that these people claim to own you. And so I will put a link to this article so that you guys can continue on in that, but I am going to go ahead and continue on in this. Where were we at? Where we were at to begin with. I didn't mean to get sidetracked by any of that. I do want to just keep it rolling as much as possible. And I just want to make sure that we're streaming good, and that we are. All right, we are still live and we're still good. Had to jump on my other device and check it out. And so let's keep rolling here. And so again, ask yourself why all of these places are not a state, but they're separate city-states. Why is the 1 square mile of the city of London, which has all the banks with its own mayor, a separate city-state entity from all other England? Why does the Vatican have its own country code, where the entire city-state entity is guarded by Swiss guards and shares no laws with Italy? where Switzerland has never been involved in wars, where banksters go for secret accounts to hide their wealth. The aforementioned city-states listed above are sovereign corporate entities not connected to the nations they appear to be a part of. In other words, the City of London that is a square mile within Greater London is not technically part of Greater London or England, just as Vatican City is not part of Rome or Italy. Likewise, Washington, D.C. is not part of the United States that it controls. And so why are all of these people not governed by the same laws that they try to govern with? And why are they separate entities? These sovereign corporate entities have their own laws and their own identities. They also have their own flags. Seen below is the flag of Washington, D.C. Note the 3 stars representing the trinity of these 3 states, also known as the Empire City. There's also a high esoteric significance to the number 3, and we know that in Freemasonry. 33, even in biblical in the biblical realm, there's a high significance to the number 3. And so we need to look at these things and understand that they are all tied together. There's nothing new under the sun, and all of these things are connected, just as we are all connected due to how we were created. Even these meat suits, how they were created out of the mud. Again, I'll digress. Let's get back to this. So we need to go back to find out how they're ultimately connected, all the way back to the Knights Templar and their initial 200-year reign of power. The Knights Templar were first called the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and the Temple of Solomon. This is a blatantly misleading title considering the immense wealth and power of the Templars, who operated 9,000 manors across Europe and owned all the mills and markets. It was the Templars that issued the first paper money for public use in Europe, establishing the fiat banking system that we know today. In England, the Templars established their headquarters at a London temple, which still exists today and is called the Temple Bar. This is located in the City of London between Fleet Street and Victoria Embankment. The aforementioned crown, to be exact, is the Knights Templar Church, also known as the Crown Temple. It is the Crown Temple that controls the legal court system of the United States, so understand that we are still under the Crown rule. Canada and many other countries are as well. All bar associations are directly linked to the International Bar Association. International Bar Association, got that? And the Inns of Court and Crown Temple in the City of London. And so everything, you are a property that is ruled and owned by the Crown. Anytime you hear somebody refer to the Bar Association, they are talking about a British Masonic system that has nothing to do with the country's sovereignty or the constitutional rights of its people. This is why when you go to court in the U.S., you see the U.S. flag with a gold fringe denoting international rule. So this is, again, a lot of things that people just don't understand is actually going on and is actually true. And so, again, share this, like it. If you like it, it'll help the algorithm and it'll help get this information out there. And this is information that everybody needs to know. So, the government of the United States, Canada, and Britain are all subsidiaries of the Crown, as is the Federal Reserve in the U.S. So again, the Federal Reserve is not a government agency. The ruling monarch in England is also subordinate to the Crown. The global financial and legal system is controlled from the City of London by the Crown. The square mile making up the center of Greater London is the global seat of power, at least at the visible level. Washington, D.C. was established as a city-state in 1871 with the passage of the Act of 1871. Again, you don't believe what I say? Research it. Which officially established the United States as a corporation under the rule of Washington, which itself is subservient to the City of London. Corporations are run by presidents, which is why we call the person perceived to hold the highest seat of power in the land the president, right? I own a corporation. I am the president or CEO. I am the president of the corporation. It is a corporation, people. The fact is, the president is nothing more than a figurehead for the central bankers and transitional corporations, both of which themselves are controlled by a high ecclesiastic Freemasonry that really control this country and ultimately call the shots. So again, I'm just going to stop that there for a second and come back here, because I want everybody to understand that these things are really just mind-blowing, okay? Because you hear all the time that politicians are just puppets and that the president is just a figurehead. And again, you don't want to believe these things. You think it's all just crazy conspiracy. You think that this is just a bunch of nut jobs speaking things that they don't know and making things up. But when you really peel back those layers, like I said, you see these things are true, and you see how they all tie together. And here's the thing is, I know this is going to hurt a lot of feelings, because it hurt my feelings. I really was like, oh, I don't really think Trump is that great of a person as a man and as a Christian, but he's the right guy for the job, man. He's going to drain the swamp, and he's going to do this, and he's going to do that, and he's going to expose the deep state. And understand that this is all a play. This is all a facade. This is all make believe. This is all put there for you to have a false hope, right? Well, behind the scenes, these people of these secret societies, of this world beast system, are manipulating things behind the scenes to further enslave you. So one thing that I want you guys to research, and we will break this down on this station as well, Agenda 21 2030. And it is the UN, the United Nations depopulation agenda. A lot of people think that it's a conspiracy theory, but it is already far underway. It has been for a long time. And so we need to understand that and come to terms with that. And again, many things that we're going to uncover. So I hope that you subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, like the videos, share them on every platform that you have, so this truth gets out there. This page is not monetized, so I'm not asking for the likes and the shares to get some kind of income off of this. In fact, it's not monetized for that reason. That way it reaches more people, and there's not a wider set of rules that enable the censorship of this. And so again, I'm doing this because I love you guys, and I care, and I don't want to see anybody else deceived. And so understand that yes, even Trump and his administration, there's an agenda behind the wall. There's an agenda behind everything that's going on. You think that all of this stuff that's being done is, again, just to give you that false sense of hope, just to feed you and get you continually buying into the lie. Excuse me. And so we need to understand that, and we'll go ahead and get back on this. We're almost through this document. I know we've been going for almost 2 hours, but I love you, family. I love spending time with you. I hope you guys love spending time with me. I am going to get back to my family soon. So let's get through the rest of this document and get screen share back up and get this document up as well. All right. So research these things, guys. That's why I'm putting this document on this broadcast. So again, the fact is that the president is nothing more than a figurehead for the central bankers and transitional corporations that are controlled by high ecclesiastical Freemasonry. Washington, D.C. operates under a system of Roman law. and outside of the limitations established by the U.S. Constitution. And so if you look at the, I forget what they are called. Let me just look something up real quick. But there are the symbolism everywhere. So just hang tight. Maybe that's for another show as well, but there is the pile of rods that is around the axe that the Romans would carry. I forget what they're called. I will look into that, and that'll be for another time. But we'll see how there's so much symbolism here in our government that shows these things are actually going on, and that we are actually under the crown rule and under the Roman Empire still. And so therefore, it should, and so they operate under a system of Roman law and outside of the limitations established by the U.S. Constitution. And that's the reason that they don't want you to know this family, is because they don't want an uprising. Our numbers are much greater than theirs, and they know that when people find this out, it's going to cause chaos, and that's what they want. They actually want chaos because their whole agenda is order out of chaos. They want to make chaos so that they can come in, clean it up, and rule over the people. And so, and therefore, it should not be a surprise that the name Capitol Hill derives from Capitoline Hill, which was the seat of government for the Roman Empire. If you look at the wall behind the podium of the House of Representatives, you will know, oh, here it is. You will notice that on either side of the U.S. flag is the depiction of bundles of sticks tied together with an axe. These are called fasci, for, again, where the term fascist comes from, fasci, hence the root word of fascism. This was the symbol of fascism in the Roman Empire, as it was under the Nazis and still is today. And so I've said it before, and I'll say it again. We are living under the Fourth Reich right now, people. It is not a coincidence that these symbols, and so check out Operation Paperclip and the likes of the Nazi war criminals being pardoned and given immunity if they came into the work for the CIA. And so again, many layers to peel back, but I'll digress. We'll keep reading so that we can get through this. It's not a coincidence that these symbols are featured on the floor of Congress. Most U.S. citizens believe the United States is a country and the president is its leader, but the U.S. is not a country, it's a corporation, and the president is not our leader. He is the president of the corporation of the U.S. That's why Trump is doing such a good job at running this corporation. He knows how to play the game. He's a corporate monster. Man, he's moving this agenda along extremely fast. And so it's time to wake up, people, and keep your eyes open. The president, along with his elected officials, work for the corporation, not for the American people. So who owns the giant U.S. corporation? Like Canada and Australia, whose leaders are prime ministers of the Queen and whose land is called crowned land, the U.S. is just another crowned colony. Crown colonies are controlled by the empire of 3 city-states. Thus, the U.S. is controlled by 3 city-states. There exists a shadowy government with its own air force, its own navy, and its own fundraising mechanism, and the ability to pursue its own ideas of national interest, free from all checks and balances, and free from the law itself. Spoken a quote from Daniel K. Inouye, U.S. Senator from Hawaii, in his testimony at the Iran-Contra hearings in 1986. These 3 city-states belong to no nation and pay no taxes. So everything that we pay in taxes goes to the crown. Check it out, people. They have their own separate laws, their own police, their own mayors, their own offices, their own separate flags, and their own separate identities. The religious control is the Vatican. That is the religious system of the beast system that we have today, the one world system. And so, again, this is the rule of every religious organization. This is where Judaism, Islam, and Christianity was all birthed out of. And I will prove that as we move forward. And it will probably be for another show. Maybe it mentions some of it here. But they have their own newspaper, postal service, library. Their population is 1,000. They have their own army of Swiss guards and their own prison. And they rule over 2 billion people. Their wealth is held by the Bank of England, which is the Rothschilds, and the Federal Reserve Bank, which is a private corporation owned by, I believe, 8 to 13 different families. I believe it's 8, but we'll look at that more. The banking control the City of London, aka the Crown, population 11,000 people. And so the Crown is not owned by the Westminster and the Queen of England or England. The City of London has been granted various special privileges since the Norman conquest, such as the right to run its own affairs, partly due to the power of its own financial capital. These are also mentioned by the statue of William and Mary in 1690. City-state of London is the world's first financial power, or the world's financial power center and the wealthiest square mile on earth. It contains the Rothschild-controlled Bank of England, Lloyd's of London, London Stock Exchange, all British banks, branch offices of 385 foreign banks and 70 U.S. banks. It has its own courts, laws, flag, and police force, not part of Greater London or England or the British Commonwealth, and pays 0 taxes. City-state of London houses Fleet Street's newspaper and publishing monopolies, BBC, Reuters, also headquarters for the worldwide English Freemasonry and worldwide money cartel known as the Crown. For centuries, the Bank of England has been the center of the world's fraudulent money system with its debt-based fiat currency. The Rothschild banking cartel has maintained tight-fisted control of the global money system through the Bank for International Settlements, BIS, International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank. The central banks of each nation, Federal Reserve in their American colony, and satellite banks in the Caribbean. They determine with the stroke of pen the value of all currency on the earth. It is their control of the money supply which allows them to control world affairs. So we will go further into Federal Reserve owners on another show. From financing both sides of every conflict through interlocking direct dictates in weapon manufacturing, COS, executing global depopulation schemes. Again, check out Agenda 21 2030. Crusades, genocide, control of food supply, medicine, and all basic human necessities. They have groomed their inaudibility through control of the so-called free press and wall themselves off with accusations of anti-Semitism whenever the spotlight is shown upon them. Their Zionist tentacles reach into every major financial city transaction on the earth. Unchecked power. The Crown is not the royal family or British monarch. The Crown is private corporate city-state of London. Its council of 12 members, board of directors, rule corporation under a mayor called the Lord Mayor, legal representation provided by S.J. Berwin. And so I will be right back, family. Please sit tight. I am going to put some music on for you, but I do need to take a quick bathroom break. And so now is your time for a bathroom break. We've been going for a couple of hours now, and I do want to get through this document, even if it means going for 3 hours. So if you guys can just sit tight, I will put one of my favorite songs on for you guys. And you guys can just hang out. I'll be right back. Out there without care, yeah, I was out of touch. But it wasn't because I didn't know enough. listen to words that make me crazy. Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy? And all that you have in the time of your life, but think twice. That's my only advice. Come on now, who do you think you are? All right, family, I am back. And oh man, I know we've been going for a while, but I hope that you take the time, even if it's at 30-minute increments, to listen to this whole thing, because it is very important information. Again, we are going to try and blow through these things and push forward, because I want to show you how it pertains to all of the things that are going on today with the vaccines, GMOs, not just chemtrails, but geoengineering in general, 5G technology, artificial intelligence, etc. It's going to get really good, family. And so let's get through this. I've got to wrap it up here shortly. And so a committee of 12 men ruled the Jewish Vatican. And just to hold off, I want to point out here, I'm going to shut this off. I'm going to point out the fact that when the B'nai Elohim, the fallen angels, came down on Mount Hermon, there were 200 of them, and they split off in groups of 10 with 10 leaders over them. And that represents a synagogue. And so you always hear about anti-Semitism, and that there is just this war against the Jewish people. But understand that the real war against the children of Israel, God's chosen people, the 10 tribes, the lost 10 tribes, all of these people is actually being perpetrated by these demons and the people that they have in power. And that's why Christ warns in Revelation regarding concerning the synagogue of Satan, those who call themselves Jews but are actually of the synagogue of Satan. And so this is all regarding end times, and we understand that we are in the end times, and that this is the synagogue of Satan. So this 12 men rule the Jewish Vatican. They are known as the Crown, the city and its rulers. The Crown are not subject to the Parliament. They are a sovereign state within a state. The city is the financial hub of the world. It is here that the Rothschilds have their base of operations and their centrality of control. The Central Bank of England, controlled by the Rothschilds, is located in the city. All major British banks have their main offices in the city. 385 foreign banks are located in the city. 70 banks from the United States are located in the city. The London Stock Exchange is located in the city. Lloyd's of London's located in the city. The Baltic Exchange, shipping contracts, it's located in the city. Fleet Street, located in the city. It's newspaper and publishing. The London Metal Exchange, located in the city. The London Commodity Exchange, trading of rubber, wool, sugar, coffee, it's all located in the city. Every year a Lord Mayor is elected as monarch of the city. British Parliament does not make a move without consulting the Lord Mayor of the city, for here in the heart of London are grouped together Britain's financial institutions dominated by the Rothschild-controlled Central Bank of England. The Rothschilds have traditionally chosen the Lord Mayor since 1820, who is the present-day Lord Mayor of the city. Only the Rothschilds will know for sure. how the City of London came into power inside England. Enter the Rothschilds. And so this is actually going to be for a whole other show. We've got about halfway through this document. There's tons more to go through. I mean, it covers the Federal Reserve, it covers um, the IRS, the Independent Treasury Act of 1921. It covers so much more. And so I am going to wrap up here. It's been going for 2 hours right now, and I've got some things to do with the family. And so, family, I hope that you watch the video. We will pick back up regarding the how the City of London came into power inside of England and the Rothschilds, and we will continue unwrapping these things, family. And so, I hope that you guys watched. I hope that you learned. And I hope that you understand that there is much more to unravel. If you guys would like to look this up, just Google Owners of the Empire. And I actually found this one on, you can see the address up there, bibliotechcapellades.net. And so you can, it's one of the first ones that come up when you Google Owners of the Empire, and it breaks all of this information down. It has links to all of these documents and all of this information contained within this document. And so we will pick back up either later tonight or tomorrow and continue walking through these things so that we can get to how all of this is being implemented today via all of the things that I mentioned earlier: geoengineering, GMOs, vaccines, uh, um, television programming. Yes, you are being programmed in the way of MK Ultra and many other technological, psychological programming manipulations that are going on out there. And again, I will even show some patents pertaining to these programming methods and how it all has to do with the eye, brain waves, electromagnetic frequencies, and the likes. And so again, don't continue drinking the fluoride. Drink you some good water. Drink you some water with silicate in it. Fiji water, or you can buy silica and make your own silica water. It'll help cleanse your pineal gland. A lot of things that you can do to flush your body of these toxins and to start waking up and your body working the way that it was intended to work, and that it wouldn't be so difficult to connect with source. And that's one of the biggest reasons behind all of this, is to keep us connecting from source, to keep us from understanding who we are, the power that we have. And so that's it, family. The enemy doesn't want you to understand that you are a child of God, that you are a son of God, that you are a Benai Elohim, that you are created above the angels, the archons, the fallen ones, and that you will someday soon be judging them in the courts with the Most High, the Father of all things. And it's in His love and His light and His peace that I bring you all of this. And we will have a spiritual message as well later, and regarding loving the things of this world, and that has to tie in with all of this, because that is the biggest thing keeping us from receiving these truths, understanding that they're actually happening, and acknowledging them, is the fact that we love the world that we live in, and we love the things of the world, and we have a refusal to acknowledge these things, because then it will mean having to turn away from them. And like that rich young ruler who said, "I've done all of these things, Rabbi, what do I need to do to follow you?" And he said, "You have one more thing to do. Go and sell everything you own and give it to the poor." And he went away sad, because he had acquired a great deal here. And so that's not just our physical possessions. That's a big thing of it, but it's also those riches of the indoctrination of man that we refuse to let go of. And I know a few of you that are fighting so hard against it. And I want to encourage you guys to let go of it, to crucify your flesh, take up your cross and follow Christ, ascend, see the Father clearly, know Him, and be transfigured. Assume that position of Christ, share these truths. You will be given the words to speak. And I trust that, fam. I have faith in that. I have faith in the Father that He works all these things together. So do not fear, because we are going to face tribulation in this world, but be of good cheer because Christ overcame the world and He gave us that authority that He had here, and prayed for that in the priestly prayer, that we would have all things as He has all things. And I believe that that is the case. So be enlightened, be in touch with Source, and understand that you are a divine being that has much more power than anybody wants you to understand that you have. I love you, family, and I look forward to spending more time with you. Please subscribe, please share, please hit the bell for notifications, and if you feel so led, please donate. There is a link for the PayPal there. I want to try and get a boom mic, a good camera, and some better equipment. That way I can bring you guys higher quality videos. And also, if there is any money left from any of that, I do have some plans. I own a construction company, and so I do have some plans on what the Father might have as far as helping those less fortunate and putting money into either some tiny homes or acquiring a plot of acreage and building a community, a self-sustaining community that has teach the less fortunate people how to farm for their food in small micro farming, micro greenhouses, and build earth homes and earthships that all have a rain collection system, a water collection system, a greenhouse system built in. They stay warm and in the winter and cool in the summer because they are built into the earth and out of earth with very, very thick walls. Some good things for you guys to research as well. It's really where I feel that the Father is leading. And so if you feel led to donate, that is really where I think that this ministry is going. And it's not just to reveal truth, but it is to walk in the fruits of the Spirit and to bear one another's burdens and to help those less fortunate. And I do feel a strong calling to the natives of this land. Many don't know, but I am. I've got a lot of ties, a lot of Native American blood, and um, and I feel like that's where the Father wants me, is helping those people first. But again, there is no division. There is no Greek, nor Jew, nor Gentile in the kingdom of the Father. We are all His creation, and we should all love one another as such. And so, family, love God, love people, love the Lord God, love the Father with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love people, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And if we love God, we understand that God is in us, the kingdom is within us. We need to do that introspective work and understand Him, understand that He's in us, and understand that He's enabled us to walk with that love and with that compassion and with that empathy. And so love your neighbor as yourself. Love God, love your neighbor, love God, love people. I love you, fam. Subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, share this truth. I'll see you soon, the Father willing. Peace, love, and light. Namaste.